Welcome back to another episode of Turning Photographers into Filmmakers. If you're new here, the reason I started this is because one of the biggest problems I have seen is that if a photographer tries going into video, it is either terrible or they have no idea what to do, but it's not that different. So we're checking off the different boxes of what you need to know whenever you are becoming a filmmaker from the photography world. So today we are talking about color profiles. As I've mentioned so many times in these videos so far, one of the things that photographers don't really understand is that you cannot edit the colors in video most of the time as much as you can do photos. So one little workaround that you can do there is you can shoot in different color profiles. Since you don't have raw video, you can do kind of workarounds where it'll give you more data or just a better starting point of where your image can become the best that it possibly can. At the end of the day, we can edit the colors from photos so well because there's a lot of data. How can we just recreate that in video to make our video look just as good as our photos look? So when it comes to color profiles, this is what we're talking about. This is no log. This is completely standard. It might look a little bit blown out, and that kind of gets the point across here. The thing is, these are the same exact settings aside from being in log that I was in for the intro of this video. So this right here is a normal color profile, no log, and this is the standard setting. I am on the Canon R5 if you want that for reference, but this is what the standard one looks like. Now let's see what the no log but neutral looks like. So now this right here is no log neutral. Probably a little bit flatter, but still you see these highlights right here. They are too blown out. Why is it blown out in this whenever it wasn't in log? Why do I not have as much data? Well, as you look at it, there's a lot more contrast in this than there will be in log. The thing is, whenever you shoot in log, you can bring that contrast back, but if you're shooting in a standard profile, you can't really bring these highlights back or see any other data around. Now let's go into log and we can dive in there, and I think it'll be a little bit easier for you to look at as well. So we're back in log. Didn't change any settings, no shutter changes, ISO, white balance, nothing. Everything is the same. Even the light is in the same spot, but this is in C-Log 1. This is what I primarily use, and this is what I recommend if you're going into shooting log for the first time. This is not a very low contrast one. Sometimes you'll see log profiles where it is just pretty much like a gray image. There is data there to bring the colors back, but it looks super gray to start. This is a great profile to start if you're shooting on Canon. Any of the mirrorless bodies, I believe, will have this profile. You can just add some contrast and saturation and be at a good point to where you want to go. That is the beautiful thing about C-Log. And why would you want to use this? You would want to use this because you see this data is back right here in this highlights. This is a shade down with the sun blasting in, but it still looks okay. It looks a lot better than it looked in the other color profiles. And with a simple conversion LUT, which you can find online, or with a simple contrast and saturation, you can, like I mentioned, get your image back to where you want it to be. So one of the problems that I have found with log that doesn't necessarily happen on my Canon R5, but definitely I've heard happens on other cameras, is that you need to overexpose slightly for log. This is especially on the Sonys. I believe they fixed it in the A1, but all of the other cameras you need to overexpose a little bit when you're in log, and it might break down a little bit in low light. I have a tip for this, and it is the histogram. What is the histogram? Well, it's something like this. It's this little grid, and you see some colors over here, some colors over here, but it's all kind of balancing where the highlights and where the shadows are. If you see something all the way down here, well, that means that the highlights are blown out. You're not gonna be able to bring that data back. If you see it all the way back here, that means your blacks are too dark. You're losing all of that detail and you're too underexposed. Instead of using the line where it tells you whatever +1, -1, wherever you are exposed, use your histogram, and that's what's gonna make life easier. Because if you can get your image to a point where you have nothing that is underexposed, nothing that is overexposed, you can really work your magic in the editing room and at least get an image where it's not distracting with anything blown out or anything too dark. So that's it right there. Those are the basics that you need to know for color profiles. Going back over it briefly, if you're gonna shoot no log in the standard profile, expect high contrast and a very limited availability of how you can color it. You can go to neutral in a non-log profile, which will be a little bit flatter, but still very high in contrast where you're gonna lose those highlights, or you can go in log. Most high-level cameras have multiple options of log. I'm on the Canon R5, so I have the option of C-Log 1 or C-Log 3. I believe C-Log 3 is a little flat for me. That's just my preference. So go ahead, shoot in C-Log if you want to do what I'm doing. If you think my colors look decent, that is the basics for shooting in log. Whenever you color it, don't worry about if you don't know much. Find a conversion LUT or just find LUTs from your favorite creators, and that's a great starting point. You should learn how to color it over time because you want to at least be able to help somebody if you're working on a project. You want to be able to point them in the right direction if they've never worked in log profiles. You can start doing this and it will level up your video tremendously.